Good morning, good day, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about lots of things, about Florida, about Latin America, compliance, how to help distributors. There's a lot to talk about today, and it's a very action-packed and practical webinar. So we do appreciate your joining us today and spending a bit of time. We all know that you've got a lot of webinars going on, so it's really nice that you can spend some time. Just while the last of you are logging on, I just wanted to introduce ourselves, really. Just introduce ourselves here. Here we go. So we are delighted to have with us today quite a great panel. I'm going to be starting here on the left. So we are here with Hesam from Enterprise Florida, the Canada office of Enterprise Florida. Hesam is based in Toronto. He'll be introducing himself and the services and help that he provides Canadian companies who are looking to sort of use Florida as a gateway to Latin America. Jen Diaz is president of Diaz Trade Law and is a very well-known expert on compliance for exporters. An amazing resource for you all with lots of expertise and experience, and she'll be sharing some things and some articles and some tip sheets as well. Matthew, Trade Commissioner for the Canadian Consulate General, based in Miami, and again is an outreach to help exporters, Canadian exporters who are looking at the Latin American markets and looking really just to grow their business in international sales. Ava Metzi is the Business Development Manager for Canada for IBT Online, based in the Montreal office. And myself, Susanna, I'm Chief Content Officer for IBT Online. For what's worth, IBT Online is a private company, and we are specializing in websites and online marketing and noted for our work with exporters. So we're really focused on exporters, small mid-cap companies who are looking to grow their businesses internationally and want to look at online business development tools. We've developed a whole series of online global programs and that are there for you. They're really tailored, well-trodden paths to go down and just explore how to grow your business if you're based in Quebec or BC or whatever it is, and how to reach global markets. So getting onto our agenda, I see more of you logging on, but you've logged on at the right moment. Good. The agenda today, we're going to start with Matthew talking a little bit about the Trade Commissioner services, the locations, the programs, the sort of helping hand that helps, for Canadian companies who are looking at Latin America, especially, and using sort of like a gateway of the state of Florida. Then Enterprise Florida, Hasam's going to be talking about how that synergy works between Enterprise Florida and the Canadian side to really help, again, these Canadian companies getting into international markets, as I'm based in Toronto. Then Ava's going to be talking about the future of sales from our perspective, at least, how we see things developing in this. And just before this webinar, we were talking about AI and things. I mean, this is very, sort of cutting edge. We're really interested in this and driving a lot of it. Then I'll be talking a bit about sort of finding and evaluating and helping distributors, agents, and sales reps globally and especially in Latin America, and what tools you might need for that. And Jen is going to be talking about some top tips for compliance and making sure you are compliant and how important that is when you're exporting. Finally, takeaways, next steps, and Q&A. Please do drop questions in. This is a moment that you've carved out of your day. Take advantage of it. Use it fully. Ask the questions that are preoccupying you, that you find are challenging for you when you're exporting. Someone has just dropped a question in, which is very kind of you. Thank you. The question is yes, you will get a recording of this webinar and the slide deck in your inbox later. So it is recorded. And with that, I'm going to turn. Oh, maybe I'll tell you what. Before we even get to Matthew, how about we just launch a poll? And I'm just going to ask all of you, which best describes you? Are you a sales manager, a marketing manager? Are you from the marketing side or the sales side? Are you a regulatory affairs professional? you know, or content broker, a customs broker, freight forwarder. I must say thank you very much. You're all very quick on the buttons. The vast majority of you are, and it's actually very evenly split. Very evenly split. We've got a peppering down, so 15, 15, 15. So there's a wide range of the audience. The majority of you, there's a lot of you who are regulatory affairs professionals, but the majority of you are in the marketing and sales. So I'm very happy to see that. All right, I'm going to close the poll, but thank you very much for voting on that. We have a couple more polls coming. So now over to Matthew to talk a little bit about trade commissioner services.
Hi, folks. You probably all know the TCS, but if you don't, we'll get to know it here. I'm going to move pretty quick as we have some heavy hitter professionals here giving the serious aid help. But what it will best go under cover of is if you file it into what you're hearing there, we help coordinate, we help develop. If you're looking to get into a market anywhere in our global 160 person network, we're there to help. So hit that slide and let's roll on. Next slide, there we go. So what we offer in particular when you're getting in there is kind of export fast forward. We provide the, you can go back there. We provide market intelligence, connections, introductions, B2B introductions, problem solving. We do trade delegations and things on key areas that are key sectors and key events that are happening in our area. We help get the most out of the free trade agreements that are out there. As far as funding, people always want to know if the government has money. Can export is probably your best of that, with up to 50% back for $100,000 in spend on everything from localizing your language, attending trade shows, and developing that side of things. It's perfect for SMEs, associations, innovation, and community investments. Happy to send you some more information on that. And of course, the Canadian International Innovation Program, if you're pushing edges and want to know how to connect up through the network as we go ahead. The Canadian Technology Accelerators are something we've been doing the last few years. These are a really exciting combination of boot camp, accelerator, and market introduction, now being done many times with multiple posts. So for example, we've got one coming up later this year in AI and ML, and we'll be doing things both in New York, Spain, and down here in Miami, focusing on 2 particular shows, so you can see how we work that together. Inclusive international business development. If you've got problems, you're running into issues, that thing is stuck in customs, yep, we still help with that too. Trade missions and events, as I mentioned, we're always trying to look for creative ways to set things up back and forth. Ask us what we're doing, ask what's going on in your area, and if we're not covering something you think we should, please hit that on in there. Next slide. We'll just go over this. I think I already mentioned there's over 160 locations worldwide. What does that mean? Everywhere you've got one of those embassies or consulates around the world, you've got a trade person covering the geographic area around it. And their job is, of course, to help those companies physically move to Canada, but it's also to help you do all the networking work that we talked about before. We help over 10,000 people a year. There's a network of over 1,000 trade commissioners, and we'll hook you up with your local provincial office so they can keep in mind things for you so you don't have to monitor it all the time. Next. Our network, as we mentioned, is all about finding new opportunities, getting new insight, connecting with key contacts, resolving business problems, and getting you into new markets with less risk. I like to say we take the scary out of export. That's pretty much all we need to cover there. Can export, as we mentioned, in this one, I think it's listing at 75,000. I'll have to check those numbers, but as you can see, there's different partnerships and different setups to where you can get these things back to. And that even includes community investment. So it's worth looking up. There is a little bit of bureaucratic paperwork to fill out, but our ROs, those offices in Canada I just mentioned, all have a specialist there to help walk you or your teammates through that. Next. We mentioned the can export, probably no need to go over that again, but that's the general ideas of what you need to do it. You need to be Canadian, you need to have less than 500 employees, and you need to be exporting, pretty much there, and have revenue of over $100,000. Next. The International Innovation Program is interesting to develop partnership activities and call for proposals. That's not really focused on what we're doing here in Miami in this particular gateway thing, so I'm going to go over. But if you see that and think it would fit in with your product or service that depends on that and needs those kind of in-market partnerships, it's a good thing to leverage, and we can help with that too. Next. We mentioned the CTAs already. We can probably bump right over those. And this is the ecosystem. A lot of times the TCS is helping you and you don't quite know it, because the Atlantic Canada Opportunity Agency, British Columbia, Invest, Nova Scotia, all these guys are all part of us, all connected in, and all get a little bit of money here and there. EDC, Economic Development Canada, very important to look for. Export Development Canada, sorry, is a very important thing to look at if you need to get your financing guaranteed, and a few other problems they do. Invest Canada is, of course, working on investing people here. Economic development, agriculture, food and dev, all these guys handle different parts of what we do there. And if you're early in this and you're in that startup phase looking to go to export, I highly recommend Startup Canada as a place to check in as well. Next. And then this is how to get a hold of us. I mentioned those offices that are in your region. The best thing to do is drop them a line, tell them what they're doing and where you want to go, and they'll line you up with all those connections. If not, you can always ask me and I can put it in there. But of course, there's all our social media, LinkedIn, and other fun stuff to find us. And I think that's almost the end of this. Almost. Got the big map shot. Yep, there we go. So why is Florida the gateway to Latin America? Important piece here. The simple fact is that Miami is the business capital of Latin America. For many, many years, it was a safe, stable place where everybody could get to. The airlines are arranged in ways that many times, if you're in Central or South America, it's easier to catch a plane to Miami and meet up there than it is to meet somewhere in between or at each other's particular city. So we see a lot of that going in. Almost a quarter of the world's weekly air cargo to Latin America goes through there. A massive amount of imports into the U.S. come through here. It's a channel that really goes through there. A third of all U.S. exports go outside of Florida when they're getting where they're going. And, it's just a ton of stuff. We're going to mention the key regional events we've got going on. I mentioned some of those coming up with the C-Lab show, Emerge Americas in Technology. There's the America's Food and Beverage show if you're in the restaurant industry. There we go. CARE-Led conferences, and the Caribbean Infrastructure Summit. Just a few ideas of what's going on there, and I mentioned the technology bits before. All right.
Matthew, thank you so much. We've got a couple of questions already, but maybe I'll just I'll save them for the end if that's okay. Let's go now. I mean, it's a really great segue also now into Hissam and just talking about Enterprise Florida and the Canada office there.
Thank you so much, Susanna. Thank you, Matthew. It's always great to go right after my great colleague at the Canadian Consulate. I feel like he sometimes does a lot of the work that I have to do ahead of me. With that being said, thanks everyone for joining. As Susanna mentioned, my name is Hissam Huriaban. I'm director of the Enterprise Florida offices here in Canada. Next, please. We basically have two offices here in Canada, one in Toronto, one in Montreal, and kind of like Invest Canada, Enterprise Florida is the state of Florida's economic development agency. So in essence, we help companies in international markets expand to Canada, learn more to Florida, learn more about the market, help them with financial incentives, help them with logistical support, and getting around to having a smooth landing in Florida. Next, please. So this is a very good snapshot in terms of who Florida's main trading partners are. As you can see, Canada is basically our second top most important import and export partner, both in terms of services, goods, and visitors. It's no surprise to see that there are direct flights from major metropolitan areas in Canada to cities such as Miami, Orlando, Tampa, etc., as well as the volume of goods that are traded between Florida and Canada, and the reliance that both parties have in this ecosystem. Next, please. Again, as I mentioned, we have 20 offices around the world where my colleagues, just like myself, cover their respective territories. We provide these services, obviously complementary to international companies looking to come down to Florida, take advantage of not only the lower cost of doing business, but also the tax advantages that the state of Florida provides, the logistical access to not only just Southeast US, but also, as Matthew mentioned, Latin America and the Caribbean markets. Next, please. Just in terms of the size of Florida's economy and population, we just surpassed, as the third largest and populous state among the 50 U.S. states in the country. It's the fourth largest economy in the U.S. And if Florida was to be an independent country, it would be the 15th largest economy in the world, with approximately $1 trillion in GDP. Next, please. Again, just to speak with regards to the volume of trade between Canada and Florida, as you can see, it is a substantial number, and this is basically with regards to service and goods that is traded. It's also important to note that there are currently about 500 Canadian businesses operating in Florida, employing about 60,000 personnel, and this is a relationship that we value. This is a relationship that the state of Florida wants to invest more, and again, we see day to day the amount of people that go back and forth between Florida and Canada. Next, please. I'll discuss some of the services that the state provides through Enterprise Florida. As you can see, some of these services are very important for a small to medium-sized business looking to penetrate a new market. So some of the support that we provide is, for example, finding a relevant site for your company in Florida, making sure that we work with the counties and authorities to have you land in the right location, provide you that market information and industry information, demographic and salary for the different quadrants across the state. There's several incentive programs in place as well that would basically make landing in Florida a bit easier in terms of workforce placement, CapEx expenditure. As you can see on this slide as well, there are, for example, incentives in terms of your CapEx, in terms of the money that the state would give back for workforce placement. There is sales tax exemption for purchase of machinery and equipment for your facilities, etc. Next, please. Again, as my colleagues will go further into details, we love to work with you. We love to understand what your requirements are on the ground. As I mentioned, we have an office in Quebec and Ontario, so we'll be more than happy to address any issues that you have, finding more about where to invest, how to invest, and what we can do to assist you. Thank you so much.
Sam, thank you very much. I'm just going to launch this other poll now as well, just to ask, if anyone wants to have more direct information, either from Matthew or Hassam or both, let us know. Just tick the box. Let us know if you're interested in that. And one little question has just come in as well, Sam, which I think maybe you could just answer, which is could Enterprise Florida help me hire people? I think we need to know how to find people. Okay.
Absolutely. That's definitely something that we can assist. We can work with local authorities to find the relevant talent. If you're also looking for universities and talent coming out of institutions as well, we'll be more than happy to assist.
Okay. Again, shout out to the audience, to everybody participating, because you're all really good at hitting the poll buttons. And Sam and Matthew, you've got quite a few people who would like some more information from both of you. So I'm going to close that poll. Thank you very much for that. And let's talk about how we see sort of the future of sales. Of Ava, why don't you dive into this one, please? Can't hear you. Cannot hear you, Ava. Whoops. Whoops. No. Nope, can't hear you at all. Nope, cannot hear you. Let me go through this. I've got Ava's notes. You figure out your audio and I've got your notes, so no worries. Just, I think it was really, very much, this is very much Ava's sort of thing, and very much Ava's generation, really trying to put them forward from our perspective on the online world, what we are seeing in terms of sales. And this is especially true for US and Latin America. What we're seeing is, how are you going to create this exporting strategy that delivers for your business? So the buyer's experience today depends on great technology and online solutions. Future of sales is what we find a digital first approach. You evaluate your go-to-market strategy, your front end, that's great online digital solutions, and that means local buyers in Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, wherever. Gartner predicts, for example, that by 2025, 80% of all interactions and sales will take place first in the digital world. So these omni-channel experiences are what we're seeing as absolutely key, and these customer-centric, increasingly personalized experiences for your buyers and your prospective buyers. I just wanted to sort of back that up for a second. I know we're not supposed to show a lot of stats in the webinar, but the stats for me are so amazing, so overwhelming, that I think they're worth highlighting. I know we're 8 billion people on the planet. There's 5.5 billion mobile phone users and over 5 billion internet users and 4.5 billion active social media users. So that's massive, right? That's a really interesting stat to keep in mind, especially if you're in a small mid-cap company. Oh, I think we might have Ava. Yes, no? So if you're a small mid-cap company, this means that you know where you can find your prospective buyers and your clients, and your prospective employees, everyone. They're all online. And I think this is also worth thinking about. When I said online, remember that 5 billion people online, the average person spends 6 hours and 40 minutes online every day. Every day, 6.5 hours online, and of which 2.5 on social media. And we'll get back to this a little bit more when we look at distributors and sales reps. So again, this is important. This is not just people browsing occasionally. This is people deeply engaged online. So we know that you are in your workplace. You're all online all the time. You think of yourself online. The whole world is. And again, this is good news for small and mid-cap companies. You know where they are. You know how to reach them. They're online and they're on social media. And that is where we're talking about the future of sales. So for us, takeaway number one is that the world is online, and that you need to make sure that your websites and your online strategies are working really hard for you. Right, let's hope that Ava gets her audio sorted, otherwise you're gonna hear more of me. Let's talk now about finding distributors, agents, and sales reps. In the past, you had like the Rolodex, you only went to trade shows. Those are all the tools in your toolbox. Today, there are more tools. There are online tools that you can use. And we're not talking just about online directories and sources. We're saying, no, use your website, use your social media to find a distributor. That's the first step. The most obvious one, most obvious, help your customers find your distributors. Make sure that your website shows them where you can find distributors, and make it really easy. Here's your distributor in Brazil. Here's their address. Here's their website, their telephone, their fax, their email. And here, if you want to write them a letter, just get in touch with them. Click on that. So it's really easy, and that is the most sort of the essential basic. If you're looking for a distributor, I'm sorry, this one's not from Latin America, this example, but we can deal with that too. It's also I wanted to make them all in English so don't understand the better. This is a company who's looking for distributors in Africa, across Africa. They've used some of their most expensive real estate, their top navigation bar, to say, become a distributor. So that's the expensive real estate up there. It's about us, products, become a distributor, right in the absolute center. And also on their homepage, they have building our distributors in Africa, find out more. So it's a clear call to action. And clicking that call to action leads you to a dedicated page, which is become a distributor page. And that entire page is dedicated to becoming a distributor, explaining it, showing maps where there are distributors and where there aren't, hearing distributor experiences, testimonials, and things. So here you have, this is a perfect landing page for distributors. If you're doing any online marketing, social media marketing, you can bounce them back here to say, okay, find out more about what it means to be a distributor with us as a company. And then evaluating them, you can actually give them quite, it's not like a contact us form for a prospective client. If it's a distributor, they need to fill out a longer form. So normally the forms on your website will be as short as possible. This form's a little bit longer because you need to have more information. So again, here's some great examples. This one on the left is on the white, the sort of white on the left is in Latin America, and here on the right for the Africa markets, yeah, in English. So a lot of questions, but also here are the advantages of becoming a distributor for us. Here's what you'll get from us, and there's a call to action with a brochure. And again, quite a hefty, long call to a form to fill out. In which case, you're definitely wanting to put in that extra work if you want to be a serious distributor for this company. But this is a way where the company finds distributors and evaluates them. I just wanted to give you another, just a same theme, just another example of it. Here again on the top level page, there's find a distributor for your clients. That's easy for them. Find the distributor worldwide, or become a distributor. And on the become a distributor page, there's whole lots of questions, of forms to fill out. In this case, they wanted to distribute in Ireland. So it's very specific. Again, a social media campaign, online marketing campaign, driving people here who are interested, and then evaluating them through the forms that they have to fill out, and the contact that they give you. And just to say, this particular company is doing the same in Latin America. The other point about distributors, if they're worth their while, then they are on social media, because that's how they will be getting prospects for you. So one great way of looking for them, looking for distributors and sales reps across the world, is using social media. In this case, this is a company who's looking for a B2B, and they're using LinkedIn. So again, this LinkedIn page is online marketing in order to find distributors, and this will bounce back to their dedicated website for that. Let's see now if Ava's got her volume back. Maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah, can we try?
Oh, you can, you do. Yeah. I'm so glad.
Apologies for that.
That's no problem. Okay, well, we'll continue like that. I'm glad to have you back, Ava. So let's move on then to the essential tools that your distributor needs. So what are those tools in today's world? From our point of view, The future of sales, your distributors, your agents, your sales rep need those online tools, and if they're going to be successful. It's great to go to trade shows. It's great to have face-to-face meetings, but it's no longer enough. Looking at Latin America in particular, it's a really, really great market to have online tools. It's incredibly responsive, and it's actually relatively cheap. So it's an amazing market. If you are a Canadian exporter looking to go into the Latin America market, use Florida as that gateway, as that jumping off market. But make sure that you have the right online tools, whether it's in e-commerce or in online marketing, all of it. And just to dive into one detail, I mean, probably the biggest demand is usually in Mexico. If you look just on Mexico, you've got over 100 million Mexicans. That's 78% of the population online. And just as a heads up, we talked about the average in the world, 2.5 hours on social media. Latin America, the average for Latin America, 3 hours and 40 minutes on social media. So yeah, and over 8 hours online. How do you help and manage your distributors? One way is to have a dedicated area on your website as a partner login, distributor login, which is a secure area where you can where they can access all their resources they need. They can then access the brochures, the sales data, and so on. It's secure, so your clients can't see it, so they can put price sensitive information there as well. But it does mean two big things. One, all your distributors have the same tools, and therefore it's a level playing field. No distributor can say to you anymore, oh, but I don't have the right brochures. Yes, you do. They're right there. You can download them. Also, and that helps you evaluate different distributors very well. Also, it means you can easily update things and just manage your distributors better, especially if you have multiple distributors like this company does, as you see from the map, the Google map, which is just full of distributor points. But what kind of websites are they? The other point of building a website for your distributor. Why would you do that, and what kind would they be? They would be what we call localized websites. In other words, they're relevant for your distributor market. If you say we want to expand in Brazil, or Mexico, or wherever in Latin America, you need to have a website like we showed you before earlier there, where you can gather that information, where your distributors can go to find you and get the information they need. And those are what's called localized websites. In other words, they're local, they're relative to your local buyer. And I've put on the right-hand side the 10 criteria that we list for localization. You'll note that 1 out of those 10 criteria is language and translation. The rest is all technical, from domain names to hosting, regulatory requirements and compliance, and so on. One of the key aspects is, of course, keywords. And let's say you're going to Mexico and you're in the car business. Well, then you have to use the word auto. But if you're going to Spain, you have to use the word coche. And this is, I think, very clear from this. So same search engine, Google in this case, same language, Spanish, different keywords for the different markets. And the importance of that is that if you are looking for, if your keyword is car, and you're going to Spain and you're using the wrong one, only 9% of the population are using that word. You're really working with your hands tied behind your back. So keywords are a good example of how localization works across different markets. Ava, what would a best practice look like?
Absolutely. So your website is a curated showcase of your products and services operating 24/7 for you. And it's crucial, as any leads you will be making should be able to find you easily online and navigate your site and get a feel for your brand and for your product. So what does a best practice LatAm and Caribbean website look like? Well, it needs to have 100% the right domain. That's a .lat.com.mx, for example, if you're entering the Mexico market. If you're going into Brazil, it's .br. And of course, it needs to be 100% mobile first. These markets are mobile first markets. And so every one of your landing pages should be optimized for mobile use, of course, because that's the way that your distributors and your prospects are searching. And of course, you need to be translated into the appropriate language. So Spanish, of course, but for example, if it's Brazil, it's Portuguese. Furthermore, and we'll talk a little bit more about online media later, but videos are super, super important for LatAm and Caribbean market. These are fast-paced, dynamic markets that are used to social media and therefore have the expectation that they're going to see stuff that they don't have to read it, that it's all videos, for example, that they can watch really quickly. They're fast-paced, really rapid and responsive markets. So you have to provide them with the information in the way that they want to consume the information. Furthermore, LatAm and Caribbean have a very, deep accessibility when it comes to WhatsApp. So you should expect to have a WhatsApp business account when you're going into the LatAm market. And once again, your website is that port of call, that showcasing that brings together all these different branches and all these arms that you will have to navigate the market. So your WhatsApp needs to be connected to your website. Your social media needs to be connected back to your website. And your videos, for example, that you're posting on YouTube also need to connect and feature back on your website. So your localized website is your best sales rep, and it showcases your brand so that your distributors have an online and accessible platform in the language that they are selling in. So it's pretty much the most fantastic and usable tool that you can put in their hands.
Great. I can't emphasize enough also the importance of social media. So this is a graph. Just know that all those red arrows on the left-hand side of that chart are all South America: Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, right up there in the time spent on daily time spent using social media. The blue arrow is Canada. So as we said earlier, 3.5 hours on social media per day per internet user in LatAm, Latin America, and the Caribbean. So make sure, if you are going there, make sure that they will expect to be able to reach you via WhatsApp. They will expect to see you on LinkedIn or Facebook. So it's not to show yourself. I wanted to give one more example about using social media for distributors. So here, this a company with a couple of different international websites, one of them for Latin America, and they're looking for new distributors in Latin America. Rather than LinkedIn, they're going straight to Instagram and other platforms, because that's in fact where their distributors are. So they found the right platform for their distributors, their potential distributors. They also manage the online media for their distributors, so they would provide all the marketing side for it, and their distributors can then use it again. So that's just another example we wanted to show. Finally, last one, I think.
Absolutely. So to go back and reiterate the same point that Susanna has messaged, LatAm and the Caribbean markets, that is not the same market as Germany, for example, or Canada, where they are much more reflective and take time to make their decisions. LatAm and Caribbean, it's very fast and furious when it comes to online media. So your social media strategy has to have a structured approach, of course, to make sure that you're reaching the right people with the right message and at the right time. It's really informal manner to create connections and capture new audiences. And this is what your audiences and your distributors in LatAm and Caribbean markets are expecting. So here's just one example, and it's from a client of ours called Amsoil, and this is a company that manufactures synthetic engine oils, and they have a very strong B2C presence. Part of our social media strategy for them includes distributor acquisition, so we're moving into the really B2B realm here. What they wanted to do was attract more leads in Latin America, and also make sure that they were supporting their distributors. So this is an example of our marketing efforts on Facebook in particular, and the importance of video content. So thanks to this, AMSOIL has really boosted its Facebook following in Spanish-speaking Latin America by generating a high volume of engagement by posting videos on Facebook. And this helps in capturing the viewer's attention when they're scrolling. As a consequence, they're getting more shares, more likes, and more comments. And so social media here is really used as a reinforcement tool for the prospective distributors who are seeking to partner with AMSOIL. The fact that the users engage and love their products has been a really big driving force for the distributor acquisition campaigns. So why is this important? Well, when you share a video on your corporate feed, this allows your brand to widen its reach, be visible to new users that might not be in your initial target audience, and therefore you'll be expanding your brand awareness and engagement beyond your own page. And it just really re-emphasizes how important online media, videos, social media in general is just super, super important for these markets.
Thank you very much, Ava. Before we talk about compliance, got a little poll to launch as well. And I wanted to highlight, so if you want to learn more about the online world, more about the online global programs, let us know. We're happy to send you some things online or some like that. But before, hold on, let's see if I can do this. Before we talk about compliance, I wanted to share a little message from an article. I'm struggling with this, but I'll get there. Hold on. For Jen, hopefully that came through. Otherwise, I'll do it later. I'm going to close that poll. Thank you very, very much for your enthusiasm. Just to close that poll, and hopefully you will have the article, and if not, I'll resend it and pass over to Jen.
Terrific. Thank you so much for having me today. We talked a tiny bit about regulatory compliance on your website, so and thinking about it overall, and I want this to be hopefully as helpful as possible as you're exploring a new market. There are 47 U.S. federal government agencies that regulate imports and exports. That is overwhelming all the time, and we try to make that a little less overwhelming for companies. As you're trying to export an item, they're not to scare you, but to give you truthful information. There are companies and or individuals that wind up having criminal liability for exporting to the wrong party. Not something anybody wants to have to deal with. And it's something I want you to go into with your eyes open. Is there a process? Is there a proper way to do so? Absolutely. Is there opportunity? Absolutely. You have a rock star website, thanks to our marketing friends here. And you've got amazing distributors. You've got e-commerce up the wazoo, and you've got social media rocking. Well, how do you make sure you're not selling to a bad guy? So lots of steps, lots of tips. Within your handout section on your platform, you're going to see, and hopefully you can type in the chat box and let us know that you got it. So within the handouts, you've got our top 10 tips. And the first page is on importing into the U.S., but today we're going to concentrate on the second page, which is on exporting, to ensure that you're compliant and you're not one of those horror stories. So every year, the BIS publishes Don't Let This Happen to You. It's literally the Reader's Digest version for all of us to hear all the horror stories of all companies that have gotten in trouble and people that have unfortunately gone to jail as a result of their export violations. So learning from them, we created some top 10 tips. So the first set is the most important, in my opinion, because your product itself could be innocuous. It could be a pencil. It could be a PlayStation. It could be a cell phone. It could be sunglasses. It could be something that's really not a problem. And your product might be fine. Your supplier might be fine. Your product labeling could be fine, but you may not understand who your end user is. So one of the first steps is knowing about your particular product and how your product is regulated and who regulates you. We've got the BIS, the Bureau of Industry and Security, whose regulations are the Export Administration regulations under the EAR. Most, I would say 90+% of exports are under BIS regulations. Very few are under ITAR, traffic in arms. I mean, I don't know how many of you are defense regulated companies and or selling ammunition or weapons or items to be used for military use. If you are, we'd be talking about the ITAR under DDTC, the Defense Directorate for Trade Control. Say that 15 times fast, right? So once you understand what your product is, likely 90+% of you under BIS, Bureau of Industry and Security, then we have to understand how your product is classified. So product classification is something some of you may be familiar with your harmonized tariff schedule. The harmonized tariff schedule, for example, on the import side, 10 digits, the first 6 digits are the same throughout the whole world. Schedule Bs are very, very similar. That's what we use on the export side. We do a lot of help with classifying goods, sometimes in conjunction with the product specialist and or your technical specialist, depending on the product. So once we understand the product classification, then we have to understand whether or not you need a license from either OFAC, for example, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, which deals with our sanction programs. Is your product going to Cuba? Is it going to Iran? We have had medical devices, for example, that go to Iran, or humanitarian items that go to Cuba. Are they acceptable, not acceptable? And we offer opinions on those and sometimes get licenses. Sometimes we don't even need licenses for them, depending on what it is. But these are things you have to know in advance. But one of the most important aspects of what we're going to talk about is step 5. If you have a customer and you're accepting money from that customer, because I don't know who wants to work for free here, but hopefully none of you, right? Nobody wants to sell a product and not get paid for it. We should be checking the consolidated screening list. This is a list of bad guys. And what's nice is many years ago, the government was nice enough to consolidate 10 different lists. Imagine having to check 10 separate lists every time you were making a sale. That'd be pretty irritating for everyone. So the consolidated list is one list. You can check your customer to be sure that you don't wake up one day and say, what happened to all my money? And unfortunately, we do get calls like that from potential clients saying, so I had $1 million yesterday and today I don't, help me. And we dig and find out that OFAC has seized bank accounts because rules weren't followed. Turns out that the end user was in a sanctioned location and there wasn't a license when there should have been. There wasn't compliance where there should have been. So lots of red flags to potentially think about and end users to check. So ways around this ultimately are make sure you've got the right parties in your life, make sure you do the right due diligence before you start selling to any of your customers. What's your game plan? Who's your freight forwarder? Is your freight forwarder filing your electronic export information or your automated export controls information? The idea is U.S. Census needs trade data of what's coming into the country and what's coming out of the country, right? How do we get that trade data from your electronic export information? So if you're shipping over $2,500 worth of goods from the U.S., which is the majority of shipments, right? We need to have those AES, those /EEI filings. It means the same thing. So you check your customers' red flags. Are they trying to come to your office or house and give you a bag of cash? That would be awkward. Are they asking for sensitive encryption software and they're supposed to be a bakery? That would be awkward. Ideas of red flags the government gives you. If it's underlined, it's a hyperlink to give you a resource as well as a consolidated screening list. So ultimately, in a perfect world, you vetted your customer. You know they're not on the bad guy list and you have records and you can keep those records. So if you were to tell the government, yeah, I checked the list. Great. Where's your proof? Do you have proof that you checked the list? Did you keep it in your file? Because you should. So every time you're about to make a sale, check that list and keep a PDF of that, and that's free. There are sexy softwares that make those checks as well and do the record keeping for you as well. But I'm giving you a free option because you're small businesses, so we want some free resources, which I understand. We're checking our red flags. We know that our product does not need a license, and then we check our end user, and the Bureau of Industry and Security has a great end user form called Form 711. If anybody wants that form, you can email me and I'll happily share that form with you after, which is the end user form. So if I'm selling a product to Susanna, I get to say, Susanna, hey, can you fill out this form, please? And the form makes her swear under penalty of perjury that she's telling the truth. So now if Susanna goes and sells the product I sold to her to some bad guy in Iran, I asked her. She wrote it on a piece of paper. Susanna lied to me. So the government would go after her and not me. And that's the way we would want it to go, right? Everybody has to protect themselves, not for Susanna, but she's the bad guy here, right? Sorry, Susanna, but somebody has to be the bad guy. So within these steps, we want to check who we're doing business with. We want to know that we've validated who we're doing business with. So we wake up with all of our money in our bank account. And then we put it in writing. So that goes on to step number 2. So we have our written compliance program. We've got our steps in writing. We've got our invoices with the right statements on it. We've got training for our employees. So our employees know something smelled really fishy, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to go to. Well, that stinks. So what happens if Ava realized that Susanna was bad and she didn't have anybody to go to? Well, then you might proceed with a bad electronic export information and bad export transactions, but maybe Ava should have known that she could go to a supervisor, she could report anonymously, and she had a way to go about it so that she could make sure that the export transaction didn't go through. So training is essential, having different mechanisms for your employees to have outreach, because what happens if it's your boss that's the bad guy? Then who do you go to? Hopefully you have a boss's boss or an anonymous tool, something along those lines. Bad things do happen to good people. If goods do get seized, if there is a penalty, if there's an issue, if there's a mistake that was made, there are many mechanisms and ways to fix it. We see a lot of mistakes made when you're acquiring new businesses. So a lot of venture capital firms are out in the open and purchasing away these days. If you are of one of those and you're purchasing another company, due diligence is really essential, making sure you do your due diligence before. Audit those transactions. Lots of ways to do so that I'm happy to talk about separately to anybody that may have questions about that on how to check past export transactions. We do trainings on ACE, which is the automated commercial environment. So you can see your records. If you do make a mistake, you can tell the government that you made a mistake and you get typically a free pass. So there's an article that'll be in the chat box for all of you on voluntary self-disclosures, which is if you do make a mistake, there is a great mechanism to say, government, I'm so sorry, I messed up. I used the wrong classification. I sent the goods to the wrong party. I should have requested a license. I used the wrong value, whatever that mistake may be. And typically, you do get a free pass. The government just put out a notice saying, if you know you made a mistake and you choose not to tell me that you made a mistake, that's actually an aggravating factor. I will use it against you if I find out before you tell me. They're trying to provide more incentive to actually cooperate with the government and, for lack of a better word, tattletale on yourself and to tell the government that you messed up because people are human and they do so. Record keeping, 5 years worth of exports you want to keep records of. You want to really play it safe. 6 years is great. 5 years is your minimum. And I always say, always petition penalties. Never, ever, ever pay without a fight. There are lots of amazing resources out there. Penalties are pretty horrific if we get to the bottom of it. OFAC, one of those many agencies alone, just this year, and we're only in May, and they only published up to April, has issued over $549 million worth of penalties already this year. Brand new stat. That stinks, and that's only one agency. That's not even BIS's penalties or other agency penalties. So the bottom line is all of that COVID-type relief and sympathy that the government may have had if you don't do what you need to do at the beginning is gone. So having the ability to understand your supply chain, understand your business partners, and ensure you have compliance in check is incredibly important. So whether or not you want additional export training, want some great resources, want to read the Don't Let This Happen to You, all of those links are on your one-page cheat sheet with our contact information if you ever have questions. We don't want this to be overwhelming, but we want you to really have a process in place so that you know and can feel confident that your exportations are taking place in compliance with the federal government rules so that you don't face detention, seizures, penalties, or God forbid, criminal instances. So thank you.
Jen, thank you very much. And as Jen has said, there's quite a lot of resources already in this webinar. There's the handout, which you just it should be just a click and drag. There's the article in the chat box. And I should have done this at the start of Jen's presentation. I just wanted to say, Okay, here's some examples of red flags that Jen mentioned. She actually mentioned them while she was speaking. Let's see how many of you are going to get full marks on this one. So, how many are, what are the red flags that you would look at? Refusal to pay, customer has little or no information business background, all cash transactions, and so on. So where are we looking at? I have to say, I think everybody paid attention. There was like overwhelming 100% all of the above. So that's great news. Thank you very much for that. And just while we're looking on a close up, well, thank you very much for that. Just while there's a couple of you who are no, the correct answer is all of the above. Just so you know, all of the above is the correct answer. But I'd like to close that and maybe just ask, and also, if you'd like to learn more about compliance, export, I know that you've got the contact details for Jen, info@dstradelaww.com, and the website, and she has a lot of things there that can help. But if you'd like her specifically to have some interaction, and perhaps then let us know, and Jen can reach out in due course and see if you need anything for that. And again, thank you very much for your enthusiastic voting. I do promise you, I have not bought goods from Jen, and I did not lie about them and sell them on. There we go. So thanks for that. And yeah, but someone has to be the bad guy, right? So we've got a couple of minutes also for questions. I want to just sort of wrap up, resume, summary, and then we've got quite a few questions in already. Takeaways. So from the whole webinar, really, your takeaways. Takeaway number one: everyone's online, right? Make sure your websites, your online strategy works for you. If it doesn't, you are missing a major tool in your toolbox. It is expected when a prospective buyer comes to look at you and say, do I trust this? Should I buy this from this company? They would expect to see efficient, good, on top websites and online marketing. Your second takeaway, which Ava had, which was your website is your best sales rep and one of the best tools you can possibly give your international distributors. And what kind of website? A localized website. That is localized. And if you want to go global, go local. That's the key. If you want to go global, go local. Make sure it's relevant to your local buyer. And the online marketing strategy, obviously key as well, reaching the right person with the right message at the right time. From Jen, we heard about the top 10 tips for compliance and making sure you're compliant with that. So takeaway number 4, ensuring compliance when exporting. It is absolutely vital for that. And as Jen has said, it's a challenge. There's a lot of moving parts, but there's also a lot of helping hands. Speaking of which, takeaway number 5, Matthew, Hispanic, Trade Commissioner, and the Trade Commissioner Service for Canada and Enterprise Florida, they are there for you. Reach out to them. They have an amazing networks that they can plug you into. Reach out and connect with them and ask them questions. If you want more about the online world, our website has a ton of free downloadable stuff in the resource pages, including about our online global programs for you. We have minutes, seconds for questions, and so I wanted to sort of group them. One question from Matthew is the grant funding didn't mention websites. Do you do grant funding for international websites? Question from Matthew.
No, the grant funding that goes into it would be part of CAN Export as part of your international development. Internationalizing your website, your packaging, your local marketing materials is all included under there, but there's no specific, hey, make me a website fund.
Okay, thank you very much. And Jen,
No problem.
can you repeat, what is the form for obtaining end user confirmation?
7-Eleven. So I'm happy to forward that to you. If anybody would like that form, then my email is there, jen@diostraidelaw.com. Send me a quick email and I'll forward it back. It's the BIS end user form 7-Eleven.
Okay, right. Ava, can you tell me, can IBT Online help me getting the right domain names in Latin America, please?
The short answer is 100% yes. You know, where it depends on which market you want to go to, .mx or .br, for example. But yes, we absolutely can, but it's a domain that you should own because it's your digital real estate. So you're the company, you want to own it. We can just help you create it, make it happen for you, and show you the process. So yes.
Okay. There's one also about e-commerce platforms across Latin America. Which e-commerce platform works best? That's such a general question. As a tech company, we always prefer WooCommerce. It's just the best functional thing for your e-commerce websites. Some companies work best though on Shopify. It really depends upon your abilities, your tech stack, your experience in it, how many SKUs you might have. But before you sign up for Shopify, look under the hood, make sure it is really right for you, and or reach out to us and we can show you the differences between the different platforms. And if you meant particularly for Latin America, maybe you meant the difference between Amazon and the local one is Mercado Libre, which is a fantastic platform. So if you want to, reach Latin American shoppers, they're probably not going on Amazon first. They're going to go on Mercado Libre. We are just at the hour, so I wanted to say, thank you all so much for joining us today, for being here today and joining our webinar. Thank you, Matthew, Hassan, Jen, Ava, and especially all of our listeners and participants. We really appreciated your active participation in polls and questions and all of that. And most of all, that you joined us to talk about our experiences with compliance, distributors, sales reps, Enterprise Florida, and Trade Commissioner Services. Wishing you a great rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All so much. See you
Thanks,
all
everyone.
soon, online and offline. Thank you. Bye-bye.